Okay, hello and welcome everyone. This is, I guess, the sixth video in the series of unlearning the falsehoods. In this series, we are rechecking some of the things that we were told in schools, or there are some myths that were perpetuated in our culture to normalize these things that are indeed not true. All right. So now that we have established that the colonizer was here, the main purpose of colonizing was conversion, and after coming over here, they saw that there are things that they need to change, such as lawmaking, such as schools, the content of education for that matter. So everything else was reconfigured and made to align with the thought of the European, meaning the whole and sole purpose of this exercise was to make us think in the way they think, to make us live in the way they live. All right. So in this video, we are going to talk about the decolonial school of thought, meaning now that we have grown aware of the fact that yes, indeed the philosophy of the colonizer had some or the other effect on our consciousness, and we are made to live by or made to adhere to principles that are not natural to us. And when I say natural principles, I mean things or philosophies that are indigenous or native to this land. All right, so think of it as a fort. Okay, there is a fort, and our native consciousness or our indigenous consciousness is being held prisoner over there. And guess what? Who is guarding that fort? Yes, the theories and the knowledge that has come out of the West. Okay, so the underlying principle beneath over here is, okay, think of it as this. The colonizer comes over here and tells us that the history of your country has started only after I come over here. Okay, you are an Indian. All right, but the next question that should come from you is, how do you prove that? Show me a scripture, show me a written document wherein the ancestors of this land, they refer to themselves as Indians. Exactly, there isn't one. All right, then they tell you are a Hindu. Okay, show me an ancient or a Vedic scripture where the indigenous people of this land call themselves Hindu in first person. There isn't exactly one. All right, now compare this with the principle of politics, identity politics in United States. There you are said that you are what you feel, but here in this part of the world, more specifically in Bharat, you are what the colonizers tell you. You are an Indian or you are a Hindu. Why? Because some Greek or Persian guy or the British called us so, and we are made to believe this. All right, this is again a product of the colonial thought. There isn't a shred of reality in this thought. So yes, that is what we like to call as right of self-definition. We ourselves have to define who we are. We cannot depend on what others call us. So that is the first thing. You have to unshackle the indigenous consciousness within you. And that indigenous consciousness is being held prisoner in a fort that is guarded by the principles of the West. The next stage in this is the decolonization of mind is to look at the production of knowledge. All right, now we all know, or if you have not already read about this in history, I very much encourage you to go ahead and read about it, about Renaissance and Enlightenment in Europe. Before embarking on this journey of colonization and exploiting all the other colonies of its natural resources, the colonizer had some sort of an enlightenment or a Renaissance movement back home. Okay, now these concepts of liberty, equality, the left and the right, the capitalist and the communist, all these philosophies came out of revolutions that were native to Europe. All right, communism came as a response to capitalism. Capitalism rose out of the thought of national consciousness, and we have discussed about this in the previous videos. So yes, so all these ideas, they came out of some revelation that they think happened in Europe, and it indeed did happen. I very much encourage all of you to just look it up on the internet. You don't need to take my word for it, and for anything that I say in my videos for that matter. I very much encourage you to go on the internet, look it up, verify it for yourself. All right. So yes, so there were some conceptual tools that came out of Renaissance and entitlement. Some of them are liberty, equality. Okay. So what that has done is, to this very day, we follow their principles. Meaning, if you look at our politics, if you look at the politics in our country, you'll see that people like to talk about the left, people like to talk about the right. Okay, are there any scriptures, okay, that mention the bifurcation of politics, and in terms of left or right, or in terms of center? There isn't. All right. The use of the word itself, left and right, itself shows that we are still very deep in the, very deep mentally in the colonial thought, because we are running by the things that were left to us. All right. Now, the reason why we still stick to this is the underlying idea that the indigenous person is not capable enough to think differently. All right. It's a myth. Okay. That only if you follow these models of democracy, only if you follow these theories of democracy that have come out of the West from the Renaissance and Enlightenment, then and only then you can flourish as a democracy. Why? Yes, because your history only started after the colonizer came over here. Prior to that, you guys were all living in dark ages. Okay. So the second step, after first reclaiming the right of self-definition, the second thing that we are supposed to do is we are supposed to reclaim our right to production of knowledge. Meaning, we need to reconceptualize our values and institutions. All right, we cannot keep operating by this idea of being a leftist, being a rightist. There is only one thing in Bharat, that is either you are a national or you are an anti-national. All right. If you look at all the literature that was written prior to the 20th century, you'll see that there is no mention of the word left or right. It is something that has come out of the West, because people belonging to a certain party used to sit on the left benches of the parliament, and people belonging to a certain party were sitting on the right benches on the right side inside the parliament. Hence the usage of the word left or right. All right, it has absolutely no bearing or no root in our indigenous consciousness. Okay, so that is there. We need to reconceptualize our values and institutions. Secondly, there has to be some alternative definitions. We cannot keep operating under the definitions that have been given by the West. All right. Yep. And what if you say something that is in disagreement or in contradiction of the principles of the West? Guess what? They have something known as cancel culture. Oh yes. The simple fact that I'm using the language English to criticize the English colonizer itself should be, testimony to the fact that it's not exactly possible. Because why? Because they have kept these checks. Social media is what? Some sort of a medium to propagate an ideology or to run your propaganda machinery. But what if people from the right come on social media? Then what do? You indulge in cancel culture. Somebody who speaks in contradiction to your own values, you don't let them flourish on social media. Hence, you see, majority of the social media companies are usually towards the left. They are left-leaning. Now that we have X, all thanks to Elon Musk, now that we have X, we have, what can we say? Some degree of freedom of expression. So, yep. Now the last part, before we conclude this video is now creation of permanent fault lines. Now there is this idea that when Christopher Columbus, when he reached America, he found Native Americans who were pagans. All right. So for them, the settled for them, when they settled over there, they were a national community, and the people over there, they were to be called tribes. Okay, meaning somebody who is living there or has come over there as part of colonization, or somebody from the outside has settled over there, is the national community, whereas the others who have been living over there are indigenous populations. This was the philosophy that was used by the colonizer to drive a wedge between people and the tribes, the indigenous tribes that we have in Bharat. Okay, so when they came over here, they said that okay, since majority of the people who live in the urban areas, they are a national community. Okay, so they were operating under the assumptions, since they went to other countries to colonize other countries, they were under the impression that people who are already living there, okay, they are indigenous, and the majority community who is living there, they might have come here as a result of conquest. But that was not the case with Bharat, obviously. We all know this. So but since we were living under a colonizing master, they came up with this idea of driving a wedge between the tribes and the national community. Okay, so that was a fault line that they have created, and that fault line has stayed permanently, because up to this day we see that many of the political parties, they take advantage of this fault line that is there between the national community and the tribes, because according to them it is only the tribes that is the indigenous population, and they are somehow different from the national communities. But this, in a way, this was a very notorious way of developing, doing the background work for conversion. Because when the indigenous community has been isolated from the national communities by creating a fault line, by creating a false fault line, so it is creating the groundwork for their conversion. Because the indigenous people, they'll feel isolated, they would want to assimilate in the national community, and hence they would want to convert. So this was again some clever play by the colonial master to prepare the groundwork for conversion. Now you would be surprised to know that there are institutions on an international level such as ILO, that is International Labour Organization, and UN DRIP, United Nations something for indigenous people. Okay, so they also do these things. They advocate rights for tribal people. So operating under the assumption that they are somehow different from the national mass of the population. Again, something left behind by the colonial power. And the last part, okay, after majority of the countries they were able to get rid of the colonizer felt that we cannot simply just leave this colony. We have invested so much in this colony to let it go. So what do? They come up with this idea of neo-colonization. Okay, they develop these international institutions such as United Nations, World Bank, and whatnot. And guess what? What are the conditions you are supposed to abide by to get their development aids? Yes, you are supposed to conform to the Western standards of democracy. You are supposed to pursue a Western model of development. And I would very much encourage all of you to look at the countries of Europe, what exactly is happening over there. Do you see Bharat becoming like UK, France, or Germany of today? If not, okay, then I would very much encourage you to look at the scholarship of decolonization. It's very widely available on the internet, but it's not gaining popularity for various reasons. But it is there on the internet. So yeah, this is how the mental aspect of the colonization works. They forever want you to stay. They forever want us to stay their slaves by constantly, abiding by their principles. So in a sense, we are giving, power to them. All right, this is the end of this video. In the upcoming video, we'll discuss something else related to decolonization. Thank you for watching.